Hi, my name is Connor McCormick. I'm the Planning Director for the town of Millbury.
My name is CJ Headley. I'm the Assistant Town Planner for the town of Millbury.
And we're here today to have a discussion about the MBTA Communities Law and the upcoming vote on the special town meeting that is coming up on November 9th, 2024.
To do so, I'll be asking Connor a series of questions related to the MBTA Communities Act. So Connor, what is the MBTA Communities Act?
The MBTA Communities Act was a law that was passed in 2021 by the state legislature and signed in by the governor. It is a law that requires 177 communities in Massachusetts that are along the MBTA commuter line to have a district within town that allows multifamily housing by right. There's a number of different requirements depending on which kind of town you are considered under the law. Millbury is considered an adjacent community as we do not have a commuter rail station within the town of Millbury. And so our requirements are to have a zoning district that allows multifamily housing by right for an area of at least 50 acres that has a density of 15 units per acre and a total dwelling capacity of 750 units.
And so what steps does the town need to take in order to comply with this law?
The town would need to pass a compliant zoning district by December 31st of this year. The town is already in interim compliance, having submitted an action plan to the state last year, and we would need to pass compliant zoning at town meeting before the end of this year, 2024.
So where will be the proposed district in the town of Millbury?
The proposed zoning amendment that will be at the town meeting is proposed to be roughly in the area of downtown Millbury in the Business 1 district. It would include areas of Elm Street, Main Street, Canal Street, and School Street. It will include a number of properties that could potentially fit multifamily housing. And further information on the proposed text of the bylaw is available on the town's website if you go to the Planning Department's page.
Can you tell me more about the zoning amendment process?
Sure. The zoning amendment process is outlined in the Zoning Act, and it requires a public hearing with the planning board for any proposed amendment to the bylaws or to the zoning map. So the planning board held a public hearing on the proposed zoning amendment for the multifamily housing overlay district, and it will go to town meeting, and folks at town meeting will be able to vote for whether or not to approve the zoning bylaw amendment. And then finally, it will be reviewed by the Attorney General's office as well as the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities by the state.
So what would the proposed zoning amendment actually allow for?
The proposed zoning amendment would be to establish an overlay district called the Multifamily Housing Overlay District, and that would allow multifamily developments by right within that district. There are still dimensional requirements that would have to be met, including minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet and parking requirements as well as height and setback controls. And again, the full text of the zoning bylaw amendment is available online for review and will be in the town meeting warrant.
There's a lot of discussion about affordable housing in regards to this law. Can you talk a little bit more about whether or not that will be required?
Sure. So the law allows for towns to decide whether or not to include a requirement for multifamily housing within the district to provide for up to 10% of the units to be affordable at 80% AMI. So through the public hearing process, the planning board and the public did express an interest in including that provision. So we did include a requirement that multifamily buildings, developments in the multifamily housing overlay district would be required to provide 10% of the units to be affordable.
So what are the consequences for the town if we decide not to comply with this law?
Sure. So if town meeting were to not approve the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, we would likely be out of compliance with the MBTA Communities Law by the December 31st, 2024 deadline. Should we be out of compliance with the law at that time, we would no longer be eligible for a number of state grant programs. The state has identified 16 grant programs that would be affected by noncompliance, including a number of grants that the town has received in the last several years. The state has also indicated that additional grant and funding programs could be affected by noncompliance.
I've heard a lot about the town of Milton in relation to this law. Can you tell me a little bit more about that case?
Sure. There is a case in front of the state Supreme Court right now between the town of Milton and the Attorney General. As of the date of this recording, that trial has just gotten underway, and the outcome of that may or may not change the requirements for the town of Millbury, but at this point, the MBTA Communities Law is the law that's on the books, so that is what we are, the viewpoint that the town is moving forward with.
You mentioned 750 units a bit earlier. Is it required that 750 units be built?
Good question. No, there is not a requirement to actually build any units of housing. This law is aimed at only the underlying zoning. So the law is designed to change the underlying zoning to allow multifamily by right. It does not require the town to construct any houses or any buildings. Additionally, a couple other misconceptions that I've come across include whether the town would have any kind of local review or control over the proposed developments. The planning board still would have site plan review for any multifamily developments that come in. Additionally, I think some clarity on what the density requirement looks like is helpful for folks to understand. 15 units per acre is what is required by the law, and 15 units per acre can take a number of different forms. It can look like townhouse-style homes, small-scale apartment buildings, or mixed-use developments.
Can you tell me why you think the state might have enacted this law in the first place?
Sure, that's a good question. I think at this point it's pretty well understood that the state is in a housing crisis, and I think that's also a national issue. So I think this was a move by the state to try to open up more communities to allow housing and permit housing in an easier way. Housing can be a very difficult thing to get permitted and built, and so I think this was a move to try to reduce that burden and make the permitting process easier for areas that are adjacent to transit. So I think this was also designed to encourage transit-oriented development, which is development of residences near places where people can commute without a car.
And just to boil it down for folks at home, what does a yes or no vote result in?
So the proposed zoning amendment is, I believe, Article 8 in the warrant for the fall town meeting on November 9th. To remind everyone, a yes vote would approve the zoning amendment, and it would be sent to the state for review and approval from them, and it would likely result in compliance with the MBTA Communities Act. A no vote would reject the proposed zoning amendment, and no change to the current zoning bylaw would take place. It would also result in the town not being in compliance with the MBTA Communities Law and subsequently being ineligible for the various grant programs that were covered earlier.
And where can folks go for more information on this?
Folks can head to the Town of Millbury's website. The Planning Board's webpage has an entire section devoted to the MBTA Communities Law, where you can see the text of the proposed bylaw, the proposed zoning overlay map, and additional information on presentations that have been given at various meetings in town, as well as information from the various state websites. Thank you, CJ, for asking those questions, and thank you anyone out there for watching. I hope this was helpful in explaining the MBTA Communities Law, the requirements the town has, and the upcoming vote at the fall town meeting, which is scheduled for November 9th, 2024, Saturday at 1 p.m.